everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Deconstructing the Narrative. I'm your host, and I'm also a content creator with SADA Collective. My name is Erica Seha, and today I'm here with Bianca. How are you, Bianca?
I am doing beautiful, Erica. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. So can we just get started, and can you just kind of give us a little rundown on what you do in the creative industry and what your role is as a creative right now?
Yes, of course. So my name is Bianca Brown, and I am an editorial writer, copywriter, music journalist kind of thing. But when I introduce myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm an editorial writer / music journalist, or just a journalist, because I feel like that's easier for people to to take in.
To like grasp.
Yeah, because they're kind of like, editorial, what does that do? So
yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I do. For the most part right now, I write for a couple I'm freelance writing for a couple of companies, but right now I also like have specific positions in this collective called Worldwide Waves and the Wild Honey Pie. And I'm a previous writer / I guess still kind of writing for some of these companies, but Live Nation's Ones to Watch, Lyrical Lemonade, and Frontrunner Magazine.
Amazing. And what kind of writing, like journalism, do you special in? And what does editorial writing mean? Can you also break that down?
So the type of journalism that I do is I focus on music. Particularly for me, I like to focus on like hip hop and R&B and rap music. So it's essentially like I go out and interview artists, or I write when they are dropping projects or something. I'm the one that does the research on them, or that their PR person sends me the emails and all the, I essentially take their project and hype it up or deconstruct it. And then we put it out onto a platform such as Ones to Watch or Live Nation. Oh my gosh, Lyrical Lemonade, something like that. And I feel like music journalism is almost like a way of getting the behind the scenes of, the artist or the artist project and showing it off to the users. My particular focus, I guess, is highlighting different artists instead of, I'm not going around like, let me go and interview Megan Thee Stallion, because although she's period, she's a bad bitch. I like to focus on like rising artists just so they can get their recognition as well.
Oh, awesome.
So that's the journalism side. And I guess editorial writing kind of falls in that as well. It's like it's writing for specific editorial platforms, which tend to be like magazines, or even like I would say even like writing for a platform like Lyrical Lemonade, anything where your work is being showcased in an, I guess, quote unquote editorial fashion. I don't know. I feel like that's such a basic ass definition of it I could give, but
yeah, it makes sense. That's so cool. Awesome. And like, how did this like background, what kind of like led you into writing and journalism? It's actually funny because earlier today I had an interview as well. She was also she worked in journalism as well. And I was just telling her that this is the first day that I've gotten to talk with anybody who's kind of a creative in the writing industry. So I really kind of want to dial in, I guess, since you guys are focusing on different things. Kind of if you can just talk to us about like what a day in the life is, and kind of what led you to choosing, this route of creativity.
Yeah. Okay. That's super interesting that you say that as well. That you haven't like met many people, especially because like as you are like the head of this creative collective, I would have thought, but I'm just like, I think that just puts it into more of a realization that journalism is kind of dying off, or there's not really many people in it as from what I'm noticing. But when I started writing from like literally when I was old enough to pick up a pen and write something. Like I've been writing my whole life. I started writing music and poetry, and like I was just writing, and then I would write stories and things like that. But once I got a little bit older, I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna focus on something more practical, a practical job, because I'm come from a military family, and like my mom is from the Philippines, and she's very like, they're both my mom and my dad are very traditional. So they were like, you have to do something practical. So I think I separated writing from like a practical job and was focusing on something completely different. But as I got older and I got to college, I started realizing I can kind of mix the two together. And I started writing very loosely for it was at my school's radio station. I would literally just write, like, I think I wrote like in total, like 5 music pieces. Like it was like a response to like I think the first one was, what's his name, Khalid, when he dropped his first album, or I think and like I wrote like a response to it, and like, okay, this is if you're feeling this type of way, then this song, this album will be good because it has this. It was just kind of like, it was super basic. But that's how I kind of started and transitioned from just writing, you know, regular poetry and like songs and things like that. Transitioned from that to writing on like other artists other than like myself or my friends. And I guess for the day-to-day kind of, it depends on your schedule. For mine, I have a pretty chill schedule. If you are a journalist, for the most part, no matter what email you have is going to be flooded with PR requests or random people reaching out to you from Instagram or something like that. So there's a lot. I go through every single one of them and I listen to every single one of them because I think that's part of part of what I would like to do, which is, you know, the smaller artists give them a platform, uplift them in ways that I'm able to. But essentially my day-to-day is going through my emails, listening to different artists and scouting through the ones that I feel, because I have a couple of different platforms in my pocket. I have to pick which ones would fit which platform, if they do at all. And then it's just from there, it's just emailing. It's just straight, everything is emailing. Even when I was going to an office in person, it's everything is emailing back and forth, curating times and reaching out to the artist or the artist management, getting all the press photos, press information. And then for me, I could spend hours. I could spend hours writing one article, even if it's like short, like a 500-word article, because I love to put myself, like my entirety of myself, into the work I'm writing. Even if I don't particularly like their music, which was something I had to learn to do when working at Ones to Watch, when I'm being assigned artists who don't necessarily fit the genre that I'm used to, or who don't necessarily, you know, don't speak to me the same way others would. But I always know 100% I'm going to give myself in this. And I will take my time. I will listen to, what do they call, Hertz? This could be like meditation music or something like that. Like I'll meditate for creativity. I will light a candle and I will sit there and I will just listen to the album or the song on repeat for like weeks, or at least days. Because sometimes in writing, you don't have weeks. You have, all right, you have to interview this person tomorrow, and the turnaround time has to be a day after that. So it's like you have to get it done. Like sometimes it'll just be like hours. So I'm listening to this album over and over again, and I like to, for me personally, sometimes I have to like close my eyes because I feel like I can see the music sometimes, which is super corny to say, and then I'll just kind of write down some feelings that come up with it, and sooner or later, it's just a very, very short, dumbed down version of it, because it literally takes me hours sometimes. I'll have an article, I'll send all the press photos aligned, and send it over either to my editor, or I'll personally have to input it into the website. And I feel like that it's essentially that on repeat day to day. But I think because I'm not like, you know, front and center, as like an editorial, like a head editorial writer where I'm in charge of an entire website. I don't have to, my schedule doesn't look like that all the time. It kind of is just whenever I want to type of thing. But for me, it's kind of been like, that's been very consistently my schedule, my day-to-day schedule.
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like you have like a really good like routine down too, which is really cool. Even though it takes you a while, and I feel like the fact that you're kind of giving your brain that time to kind of, you know, catch up and like be able to really understand the, you know, the content that you're putting in. I really like the fact that you're mentioning that you really kind of you want to put your all into everything, because oftentimes, you know, when you're doing something, especially with something like you mentioned, where it's like a situation where maybe you don't really connect with the music much, that'd probably be something where most people would kind of just want to like throw words on paper and get it over with, you know. But I like the fact that you kind of take the time to really put yourself into it, because it's your art and it's kind of your work, you know what I mean? So I really enjoy that you kind of said that. It's really important. And I wanted to kind of talk with you about, because, you know, I know you mentioned at the beginning that, like, you know, you feel like journalism is dying, but I don't think necessarily journalism is dying. I feel personally like you know, a lot of the times journalism and writing don't really get regarded as like a creative like outlet. Like it's just writing, you know what I mean? And I wanted to kind of talk with you about that because I really feel like that's like a really big reason as to why we're not getting many like, you know, hits from people who write, which I feel like writing is one of the most creative things you could possibly do. I love writing too. And like, I just like, I feel like it takes so much like like creative energy to like really like put words on paper. So kind of want to talk to you about that as like someone in the industry. Like, how do you feel that, I guess, like why do you think that is, I guess, that like, you know, no one really regards, you know, writers as creatives even though they're like some of the biggest creatives out there?
That is actually a great question because that's something that I've been asking myself for years. I've still, it's still something that I struggle with answering today. I believe people kind of associate writing with like this remedial task, or like, you know, like people think, okay, when they think writing, they think essays, they think college, they think high school, they think when you're having to just write these papers, or I don't know. I just think people regard writing in a more academic sense and not in a necessarily as, or not necessarily in a creative sense, especially if you're veering off, you know, you're not writing poetry, which is still something that I think, I don't know, that also concerns me as well, because especially, and I think the only reason I say that it's, I don't know why I would say why I said that it was a dying, kind of like a dying, can I speak? A dying occupation, is because, especially, I guess I'm speaking more from like the music industry side of things. I believe a lot of the people that get into writing for like music journalism, sometimes if they go in it looking to get famous, it's kind of like, I think that's the thing, is like a lot of people go into it looking to get famous and looking to make money. And for the most part, because writing, journalism in general, if you're not like, you know, a news journalist or something like that, it isn't necessarily regarded, like you were saying, it isn't necessarily regarded as like, you know, they like, journalists don't tend to get their flowers. So a lot of times when we're writing on, you know, oh, Megan Thee Stallion's new song, we're putting it out there, people aren't really checking for the writer. They're looking at the content, but they're not necessarily checking for the writer. And also, if you're not as established in the industry, you're not getting paid. Like the entire time I worked for Live Nation for, what was it, like a year and a half almost, and I got paid not a dime, not a single dime. With Lyrical Lemonade, not a dime. So it's just like, I think that's what I would say is why, I don't know. I don't know if I think dying is dramatic to say, but I think it's not a very popular occupation because you don't make a lot of money. There's not a lot of instant gratification within it. You are literally writing because you love to write, and well, in my case, I'm writing. Let me use I statements. I'm writing because I love to write, and I also love to help uplift and give voices to those who I believe deserve it and need it, especially like upcoming artists who don't necessarily get that because they're being washed out by, you know, all these bigger artists or these, you know, these people with all these followers. And I think that's one of the main reasons why journalism is kind of, I guess, dwindling or stagnant, is because people are looking for money and instant gratification, which doesn't always come.
Which I feel like,
cool.
Which I feel like is also true for any like area in the creative industry too. You know, that's something that we've also been talking about a lot within these sessions. Is really this notion of, you know, artists really not being able, like being like connected with their work to the outside world. So like oftentimes, especially with social media, kind of the same way you'll read an article and not really look at the, you know, at the writer, you'll see a photo that someone took, and like oftentimes people don't take the time to go and like research the photographer, who, you know, what their process is. So I think that's definitely like a really big gap in the creative industry right now, is making those connections between, you know, the artist and their work, you know what I mean? Which is why we kind of wanted to give a platform for you guys to talk about your story and stuff, because that's obviously the most important part of what you're doing. And I feel like, you know, the authenticity from artists is what makes them unique and special. And every single person has a different story to tell. And without, you know, talking with someone or taking the time to research them, it kind of like you're losing that aspect of looking at their work, which is kind of everything that their work stands for. So yeah, I definitely think that's really important.
It's like we're looking at the billboard, but we're not regarding the people who made the billboard, you know, like for anything. So thank you all for this platform also for regarding the people who made the billboard. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's
needed.
definitely really important. And I think, I think at this point it's like it's just being able to kind of uncover those narratives is what needs to happen in the industry in order for artists to kind of be regarded with the respect that they deserve, you know what I mean? Because I feel like, you hear this starving artist notion like all the time. Like people
Mm-hmm.
don't want to enter the creative industry because it's so daunting. Like you hear all these like negative things, you're not going to be successful, you're not going to make money, all these things. So it's like really like scary to go into like, a culture that surrounds around that when you're entering it. But I feel like that's not the case. Like you said, like a billboard or a show or anything, like everything is like
Mm-hmm.
took a creative mind behind it. And I think people sometimes forget, same with the writing industry, people just forget that it's a creative thing, you know what I mean? So then oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
because they forget, they don't associate creatives with success, you know what I mean? And obviously like
Exactly.
creatives are successful and we can be successful. And I think it's just things just aren't being viewed the right way because I think it's really social media that kind of social media is a great thing. It's a great thing for the fact that we can share so easily, but I think it's also
Mm-hmm.
really, not a good thing because then we're kind of losing that connection between the two. So I really like that you're
Exactly.
kind of talking about your process and how you really want to kind of insert yourself in there because I think that's really important. And, especially with writing, something that's so like words on paper, being able to kind of hear your voice throughout that is really important.
Okay.
Awesome. And so I wanted to kind of move over a little bit more broad and talk with you about how you feel or what role you feel, I guess, artists in general, any artist or creative plays in society today. Because obviously, we're in a really scary and crazy societal time right
Yes.
now. So, and I feel like creatives feel like play a really big role. So I kind of wanted to talk to you about what role you feel we play right now in the society and what we should be doing as creatives to kind of, navigate through this time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great question also. I personally believe that we as creatives are kind of taking especially right now with this, extreme, like social media is booming.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have a really big opportunity right now which people are utilizing,
Mm-hmm.
to use our skills, hone our own skills, and to educate others or to
Mm-hmm.
uplift others. And I think a lot of that is done through obviously very specific niche, well, not niches. I think every creative can do it if they
Mm-hmm.
want to. And I guess that takes me kind of back to like, oh, the person that built the billboard. It's people like, in graphic design who are like, you know what, even today, the polls are open and everything's today.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know, like I just saw I shared it on Instagram also too. It was like a list of voter harassment hotlines, like just in case
Mm-hmm.
you're somewhere and someone's trying to heckle you to vote
Mm-hmm.
for one person or another. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
made this really beautiful what is it called, graphic design, like this little,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, graphic design showcasing all the different numbers depending on different areas. And other people were like, I don't know who to vote for. And they did their research and they made little graphic design social
Mm-hmm.
media posts to share that. And there's
Mm-hmm.
writers that are like, this is even, and in regards to even and SARS, one of my favorite writers and like editorial writers, wrote an entire article on like end SARS and like in regards to end SARS and like how creatives and the music industry, because she's also like music journalism,
Mm-hmm.
can help with it. And I just think right now, because we have social media, we have these platforms given to us, and we have our minds, like we're thinking creatives, we think differently. Like we don't even think inside or outside the box. Like there's no box for us. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're oh, I think I lost you a little bit.
Oh, can you hear me?
Oop, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Okay, there you go. Now I
Okay,
can hear you.
go. Sorry.
That's why I was like, what happened? I was looking at you for a second. I was like, wow, they're really listening. And then I was like, oh wait, no, it's frozen. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I think it's
No,
my
that's okay.
internet. But I was essentially saying that I think as creatives, we think so differently, and it's the way that our specific thought is needed, especially right now in this world where we're starting to be given like the foot in the door to like exercise these things that we're natural at to educate others and to unionize others and get people to I guess listen. And I think that's always been one of the most prevalent things in my life was using my own creativity to get others to see other identities, to get others to hone their own skills, to highlight themselves and also highlight others. And because I used to be, I was a host for a spoken word lounge for like 2.5 years. And that was where I felt like a lot of that stemmed from, because it was just like, I'm in this space and I'm holding all these people's, like they're willingly sharing parts of themselves with me that they wouldn't normally share out in the real world. And I'm in this space to like, you know, coddle that and hold that and then release it, you know, because it's like, you can't hold on to things. But I think that is the same aspect, that same thing is what creatives, the role that we play is to kind of hold, not only, but it goes, I feel like I'm just talking in circles, but I feel like it also just goes so much further than just like, you know, an individual to individual basis. Like, I think it's like, we're holding the future of the world in our palms. And we can hold it. We are in charge of holding it and also releasing it and sharing with the world. And in I guess the most, I feel like I've just been talking in circles. I'm sorry, but I guess in the most.
No, you totally are making sense. Yeah, I know. I feel like you're kind of saying that, you know, with our voices, we're supposed to kind of, I feel like what I'm gathering from what you're saying is that, you know, obviously, like, I really like how you were describing that you saw these graphics that people are making to kind of represent the time that's going on right now. You know what I mean? I think that, you know, as artists, like you're kind of saying, we have this, you know, we have this duty to kind of, you know, use our voices and our artistic voices and like share knowledge and share, you know, kind of, you know, our thoughts and stuff on, you know, what's going on in the world right now. And I think that, you know, the fact that like, you know, there are graphic designers, or there are photographers, there's so many different artists who are working on projects that kind of are going to encompass what was going on in this moment, which is, you know, I think that's kind of, you know, where you're headed with that from what I'm gathering.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I was totally understanding what you were saying. And I think that that's so true. And I feel like, you know, as artists, like we really do have that duty to kind of, you know, represent the time that we're living in. And I think, you know, especially with everything that's been going on this year and stuff, you know, like we're going to look back in 10 years and see all of the work from this time and like remember COVID, we're going to remember the elections, we're going to remember all of these things, you know what I mean? And artists have the duty to kind of place those markers, you know what I mean? So that like in history books later, like, or when our kids ask us later, we have things to like kind of refer to kind of explain, you know, the time that was going on. So I definitely think that's really important that, you know, artists kind of work during these times. But I also think it can get difficult when artists, you know, feel like mentally drained, because it is a very mentally draining time, you know, to kind of give yourself that time, you know. So it's definitely, you know, like a balance of, you know, doing what you need to do for society as a whole, but also kind of taking that time for yourself as an artist.
Because it can be a double-edged sword. It for sure
definitely can. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And then I kind of wanted to talk to you about, like, I guess just like inspiration for you. So like, I know you write a lot about music, so I'm sure that really inspires you, but has there been any, you know, sources of inspiration in like your daily life that are like a story or something that just like really like hit home for you and that kind of inspired your work going thereafter?
Yes. Okay. So I think I had like explained, like when I was younger, I used to do a lot of writing, but I did a lot of writing for myself. Like because I'm not very, when I was younger, not now, I was not a very expressive person. But even now, sometimes I don't tend to share my feelings or my emotions. And so I'll utilize like, you know, poetry or music or something when I was younger that I would write. But I was never really vocal about a lot of things. I kind of just stayed to myself, which has like always been my thing, was just like to stay to myself and not be as vocal about what I'm feeling or, you know, anything like that. But when I got to college, it kind of switched. It was just, I'm come from and a lot of that is because, you know, I'm like a Black queer woman and I was growing up in a super religious Republican house, you know, so it's like a lot of my identity, a lot of my life is being suppressed. So that's why I thought, okay, I have to suppress myself. I can't say anything. And the things that I will say will come out in my writing that nobody else will see. But then when I got to college, I got to loosen that up a little bit. And I think the one thing that really helped drive my own voice, into incorporating that also into my own work. My freshman year of college, I went to UCLA, and there was so much racism going on, which was crazy to me because it's like 2015 at that point. So I was like, why are y'all being racist? But it was like, you know, me and my friends couldn't even go. It was something as like stupid as like, oh, we're gonna go to a party, and then we weren't getting let in because, you know, we were Black, and we were just like, whoa. But the one thing that really set it off for, like, I guess all of us at that time was the Kanye Western that happened. I don't know if you've heard of that one, and it was back in 2015. This frat had a party called the Kanye Western, and they literally had people dressing up as Kanye West. And at the party, they were obviously, it was kind of like a gross, it was a gross display of like what they thought Kanye West was as a Black man, and like what they were trying, it was like a whole bunch of like Caucasian people embodying Blackness in a weird, like, stereotypical way. And then there were also some folk who had decided, you know, let's do blackface too. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it was big. It was we were like enraged, and I think that was one of the first times where my anger felt like, I just felt like I was a part of, like, other people were feeling my anger as well, and they were not telling me like, no, you're wrong for feeling that, like, no, you have to keep that down. Like, it was like collectively everyone was like, no, we're angry about this, and this is not okay. And it got to the point where it was reaching news outlets, and like people were being interviewed, and like it just turned into this really big thing. And then we eventually started protesting at the school, and it was my first time protesting. Like, I, you know, this from this small town, and like I've never seen, like, I didn't even know what a protest was, and everyone was like, are you going to the protest? And I was like, what is a protest? And I get there, and I'm just like, oh, this is it. And I like wrote a poem and everything for the protest, and like, it was just I think that whole experience helped me to realize, like, it's okay for me to be vocal about the things that happened to me, the things that happened to my people, the things that happened, you know, like it taught me that I don't have to censor myself, and that I can also like share how I'm feeling in my work. And I think that's entirely driven my work, because before, if I like, even when I wrote my first ever like music journalist type of article, which was through my school's radio station, it was very like, you know, it's still emotion based, like, oh, if you're feeling this way, you can listen to this song. But it wasn't very like, this is how I feel entirely. And I think once I allowed myself to kind of bridge that gap between how I'm feeling and then, you know, what's in front of me, which was what I was able to do after the Kanye Western and the riots the protests that we incited against that. I think that was probably the one thing that inspired me the most to formulate my own identity, let alone my own identity in my work, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, and I think that, you know, that's crazy. I've actually never heard of that. I'm surprised I've never heard of that, but that's really crazy. And I think that, you know, the fact that you kind of took something that was so ugly and so, you know, awful, and kind of were able to, you know, use that to kind of form your identity and form your voice. That's kind of, you know, that's it right there. You know what I mean? I feel like that's right there what we should be doing. You know what I mean? Is like channeling our feelings towards the things that are going on into our work. You know what I mean? And I feel like the fact that you've kind of, you know, formulated your career kind of based off of that experience, you know what I mean, which otherwise would have been a really negative experience, you know what I mean, and you were kind of able to turn that into something to kind of use to educate, you know what I mean. I think that's really important. And, you know, kind of going off of that, since you are kind of touching on such big issues, have you had any really pivotal responses to your work, any of your works, whether it be personal or through your written work, that have really just been changed, like, wow, like I feel like I'm doing something right, you know what I mean? Like, have you had anybody come to you and just like what did they say to you, and kind of what was that, you know, interaction? What was it like?
Yeah, it's so hard to pick one, because I feel like every single time somebody says something to me about my writing, it always feels like the first time that somebody's saying something to me, because it just means that much. But I think one of the very first times that I really was like, oh my gosh, like I might, like, I think it was like on one end, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually being perceived like on an existential level. And then the other side was like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm actually like, I'm actually making some sort of an impact. It was when I was writing for Ones to Watch, And at that point, I was like a machine, like writing, just writing. Like I have over probably like 70 to 80 articles for, I guess, with the collective of Ones to Watch and Lyrical Lemonade. And I think at that time it was about like 75 that I had been writing, if I'm correct, like that I had in total at that point. So I was just a writing machine. And like, there was a lot of like things going on in those companies, like that. There was a lot, I was being treated in a very, how you would expect the only Black queer individual to be treated, you know, like in this office space, so it was like, I didn't have the best experience there. I'm still grateful for you know, the opportunity, but I was not being treated how I, you know, should have been treated. And I think I was just really, really low and really down. And I think a lot of it made me doubt myself. But then this woman reached out to me via Instagram. It was this Black woman. She had reached out to me. I think she was a lot younger than I was, maybe like just turned 19, I believe. And she reached out to me because I had written an article that she loved, and she just sent me this long thing that was essentially like, thank you so much for this article. This was an amazing, amazing read. I love the tone in your voice. I love the way you write. I've been writing for like years, and, you know, I kind of gave up a little bit because I've been applying to so many different things like that. I haven't been hearing back from anybody, and nobody's been even giving me a chance. And, you know, I write my own. So I started writing my own things. So she made her own website where she'll write on artists that she likes, and she'll give her own little take on them and write things up on that. And she was just like, on one end, she was just like, thank you so much, you know, and you're like reading your article and then, you know, searching you up and finding out that you were Black. Like, it just like, it gave me hope. It's giving me hope to continue writing. And then, and I think that, I mean, there was more to that, but I think that was the first time where I realized like, oh, like, I can make a difference, and I am making a difference, and like I can help people while doing it. Like, you know, like I'm not only helping artists, but I can help other writers like her, or like I just was trying to help this other Black queer woman the other day, gave her some references and gave like, it's just like, it's just like, I think that was the first time I realized like my work can make an impact, and it is making an impact in ways that I don't even see. And then I think it just made me be like, okay, now it made me, I guess it was like, you gave me this like outside looking in perspective, because I'm over here like, you know, inside looking out, and I'm just like, wow, I'm doing all this. And it was like the same thing how we were talking about, like, you know, I'm not getting the recognition, I'm not getting paid, and on top of that, I'm being mistreated. And, you know, so it was just all this stuff going on. And then to get that message, it was like, okay, now I got to flip this perspective, because I'm not doing this just for the artist and just for my, you know, my own sake of like wanting to help the artist. I can help do this for others. Like I can provide representation, I can provide resources, I can provide mentorships. Like it was just, I think that was one of the first times that I was really, really like taken aback by that.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's so awesome. It's so good I'm sure to hear, you know, people kind of responding to like what they're reading, you know what I mean? And I think that goes back to, you know, 100%. The fact that she took the time to kind of research you, and, you know, she really connected with what you were saying so much so to go, you know, back and see who wrote this, you know what I mean? And kind of contact with you. I think that's really special. And I think that's awesome that you've had that experience, and let's just hope for more of those. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are, you know, I'm sure reading your stuff. And yeah, I definitely think, you know, at this point, it's just kind of getting people to feel comfortable, kind of getting in contact with artists and letting them know that like they made an impact. You know, I think that's really important to kind of have those connections.
Yeah, that I feel like people don't. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people don't like to reach out, which I think to anybody, like to any of their favorite artists, or to like the smaller, like, you know, their favorite photographers, especially if they have a follower count. And I think it's because they think, oh, they're taking photos for this company, they're writing for this company, they sing for this guy. So it's like, why would they reach out to me? Why would they look at what I'm saying? And I think it's like a lot of artists do. Like that's one of the things that I learned just from like my interacting with many different, I guess, like artists, like I guess up there artists, is a lot of them do look at their requests. A lot of them do read what you're saying to them. A lot of writers do like we appreciate it, and we appreciate it a lot of times. Like we won't actively, like, especially if you're like higher up there, you know, you're like the pop star type or like the Joe Budden type. It's like we're not always gonna like respond or reach out or reach back. But for the most part, when artists and creatives see somebody connecting with their work in such a way that like they feel the need to let them know, hey, your music did this for me, your article made me feel this, you did, like, I just feel like people don't do that because they don't think they're being recognized or they're being heard. But it's just, it's definitely connections that are made through, I guess, that. I don't know. Sorry, I ended that terribly, but
no, that makes sense. No, and it's important that people, you know, feel comfortable. And like you said, I feel like even if you don't feel like someone's gonna see it, like just say it anyway, because you never know, like on the other side of the screen reading, you know what I mean? I think that's really important. And kind of moving over, I guess, onto like, you know, the way people would perceive your work. But what is, you know, the message that you hope to leave behind? Like, let's say when you're gone and your work still exists in the world, what do you hope that people take from it?
I kind of hope, I hope that when they see my work, no matter where I'm at in 5 years or, you know, when I'm dead, I hope they see my work and they're able to feel the sense of empowerment. I hope that it allows them to feel like, you know, when the going gets tough, don't give up, because I think that's the one thing that I believe I've been able to leave behind for myself just thus far, for myself personally, is that you have to keep going, because for every art, even when I interact with some really small artists and they're just like, you know, how do I get with these people? How do I, you know, my thing is just to keep going, like keep going, keep perfecting your craft and keep reaching out and don't stop. Because if you like, I mean, I forgot, it's such a corny quote, but it's, you know, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And that's really it. That's really what it is. And I just want my work to be a reflection of that, of artists who haven't given up, of me, myself, who hasn't given up and is still writing with the hopes to, you know, uplift others, but also uplift myself in ways that I can, like just in terms of like, oh, maybe one day I'll keep writing and I'll, you know, actually get paid for it, you know, like, or like paid like a decent, like, and actually like what it's actually worth. Or maybe one day I'll write for a platform that, well, which is, I think I'm pretty much there now, but write for platforms who don't take advantage of me. And like, I'll be able to interview the artist of my dreams, which is still like, I think that's the thing that I want people to take from this, is to just don't give up. Like, don't give up. Even when things look bleak and it seems like, you know, you're at the end of the road and there's no reason to keep going, and there's always a reason to keep going. There is. You just we don't see it yet. We don't see the stuff that's happening behind the scenes in the universe or God or, you know, whoever people believe in, but you just got to keep going. That's what I want people to know.
Definitely. Yeah. And I guess, you know, summing off of that, is there any you know, piece of advice? I feel like you might have maybe already touched on it, but is there anything that you would, you know, give as advice to your younger self when you were first starting and, you know, entering this industry and it was really, you know, scary and daunting? Is there something that you know now at this point in your career that you would, you know, tell your younger self, so that, you know, as advice?
I think I would tell myself to just, it sounds so corny. It sounds so corny, but to never lose hold of yourself, because I feel like, especially if you're in the industry, like any creative industry in Los Angeles, it's just stacked egos on egos on egos and egos, and others' egos are, it's like when people get inflated sense of egos, they kind of look down upon you when you don't have an ego, or when you don't, you know, you don't have status of some sort, or you're not doing this, or you're an intern. It's like, it's enough to kind of crush you, or like form you into this person who's like, okay, now that I'm with this company, I can have this ego. And then you see everybody else is below you. And I think, or not below you, but it kind of puts, it's either, I think there's two things. It either makes you see others as below you, or it makes you see yourself as below others. And I think those are two of the most detrimental ways to navigate this world, especially when we need each other. Like, existence and life is all about just love and connections, and even like you're down to your career is connections. You know, it's like, I feel like even if that's not your main goal, especially in the creative industry, one of the things that people hone is like, you know, connection, networking. And even if your whole thing isn't like, oh, I don't want to just like network or whatever, I think at the end of the day, like, we need each other. And I just feel like if you're seeing yourself as so below others, which is normally my issue, was normally like, you know, I'm working with all these people that are up here, and so I'm less than, which is, and it's like, it's just not true. It's just not true. And you're setting yourself up not only for failure, but it's also like, it's damaging to your own mental health. It's damaging to your own process and your own progress and your own, sometimes your work. At least I should be using I statements, because that's what it was for me. And so that's the one thing I think I would share with not only myself, but with others, is to just hold on to yourself, because you can lose yourself searching for your, like, you know, working and searching for your dream. But if you hold on to yourself, at the end of the day, you will be okay. And people are going to see that. Like, people will see that. People can always see, you know, the brightest shining, the brightest shining in the room. And, you know, some people are going to want to dim the light, and some people are going to want to uplift you. So it's just about, you know, differentiating between those.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And, you know, I think that, you know, telling a younger creative that, I think, is very impactful. You know what I mean? Because I think it's, like you said, you know, especially in Los Angeles, the creative industry is so scary to be in. You know what I mean? Like, not only is the creative industry in general scary to be in, but then, you know, you're in a big city with a lot of really successful people, and it gets scary. And I think, you know, the fact that you touched on this aspect of, you know, the fact that everyone always tells you as a creative, like, it's all about connections, it's all about networking, you know, and like, those things are true. But I think what a lot of people fail to do is kind of put their personality into those connections. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times it's like making a connection because I need this, or I want this job, or I want this whatever, you know what I mean, without making the actual connection with the person. So you're missing out on a whole aspect of, you know, connecting with another artist and being able to kind of learn from them and stuff. So I definitely think, you know, kind of focusing on building those relationships first, and then kind of going for what you need later is definitely really, really important.
You're hitting every single point. Like, your mind, you're perfect. You're so good at this.
Thank you. Well, you have a good head on your shoulders as well, and I really appreciate you doing this. I've learned so much from you, and I'm sure anyone watching is going to get a lot of advice from you. The last question we've been asking, which is going to be a fun one for you since you work with musicians, what is your favorite song right now?
All right. Is it cheating if I have to look at my phone?
No, it's fine. Look at your phone.
I have to, because there's just so much good music right now. It's really a tie, but I'm going to have to say, okay, so he's a upcoming artist. He's absolutely amazing. His name is Kyle Lux. He's from USC. He's just, he's such an amazing person. But his song, Are You in Love, is so good. Like, his project just dropped not even like a couple days ago, like maybe last week. And Are You in Love was like one of the pop-in songs on there, like the ones, like, you know, when on Apple Music, when it's like the most popular one has the little star. That's the one. But that song, because he's just such an amazing artist. Like, I implore everybody to listen to Kyle Lux, and specifically Are You in Love. It's such a beautiful song. Like, y'all will,
oh my gosh. Amazing. I'll share that on our page. That's amazing. Awesome. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us, and thank you for kind of letting us in on your story and stuff. It sounds like you've, you know, had a lot of experience with, you know, kind of putting yourself into your work, which I think is so important. It's been really great talking to you. And if anybody's watching, or if you have any creative friends and you guys want to send them my way, please be sure to do so. You can have them apply down below to be interviewed for the series with a link for a type form, or you can also email me directly. Oh my gosh, I always stutter on that. Email me directly at erica@sadacollective.com. And then also, I don't know if anybody knows this is watching, but I actually met Bianca at one of our conversation pit sessions. We just started that. I'm loving that so much. And actually next week we're moving over to our niche sessions now. So we're going to start focusing on specific groups of creatives, basically meaning that we're going to, let's say 1 week we're doing, you know, photographers. Basically, we're going to have a bunch of photographers. Anyone can come, but it's going to be, the focus is going to be on the photographers. So they're going to be able to share their work through screen share, get kind of, feedback from anyone who wants to provide feedback, kind of, network within their industry and stuff. So we kind of want to every week focus on a different, type of creative, so that we can kind of give them the platform to kind of chat with others, especially during this time where that's obviously kind of really difficult to do. So that's really exciting. And then also we are going to be starting on Fridays, because our new digital community is launching very soon. So basically within there, we want to start doing hosting events on there. So we're going to be asking people in the community if you have any knowledge in any area that you would like to share with others. Basically, you're going to be taking over my seat. So you're going to be kind of teaching people whatever it is that you want to teach within your realm. And it's going to be just an event that you host and stuff. We're just going to be promoting it for you, which is really cool. So that's going to start happening every Friday. So we've kind of got, a little bit of something different every day throughout the week, which is really fun. So yeah, so all of the applications and all the information for all those is going to be down below. And then other than that, thank you so much. Oh, and is there anywhere anyone can contact you if they have any questions or want to reach out to you or just chat with you?
Yeah, of course. Also, please utilize these people. They're amazing. They're super, super amazing. Like this whole platform, this whole collective is amazing. Thank you also for like allowing me to be here and allowing me the space, and just
of course,
even
thank you.
the conversations, it was just amazing. Like, I don't know, y'all are amazing. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, especially as like a upcoming journalist or writer, or if you just write stories on the side, you write fan fiction, you like, hey, I want some pointers, like I'm here. My email, if you want to email me, because I'm an old person and I have a Capricorn Mercury, so I'm like, let's email. But my email is Bianca Brown, BIANCA Brown.editorial@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram at brokebackbianca.
Awesome. So make sure everybody hit her up if you have any questions. And Bianca, I hope to see you in one of our next Conversation Fit sessions.
Oh, girl, I'm gonna be there.
To see everyone else there. Awesome. And I look forward to the next episode. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bianca. I appreciate it.